Not very prominent, black and British, just hidden on the corner. Now, this is the first edition of today, Sunday, the 4th of October 2020. We are taking a world exclusive diagnostic look at Fleet Street, and we shall be contextually also examining the key role being played by the Conservative Party's own broadcasting network, which is the BBC. So the Sunday Times says that Trump is gambling on radical new drugs to beat the virus. Underneath is the first subheading: confusion reigns over true state of Trump's health. And the next one is, but he tells doctors, I could walk out of here today. Now, the coverage of so-called illness by Trump is a cover-up, of course, and it actually reinforces the serious psychological challenge that Trump personifies, embodies. He is in denial. He has got this. And he says that he could walk out of the hospital today. So he's not accepting that there is any problem. Nor are his supporters, who are in increasing denial of reality. And nor is actually Fleet Street really telling the truth, despite the appearance of giving information about the state of Trump's health after the exposure to the virus. Now here is another. So what I'm doing here, in between the actual kind of papers, holding up the magazine covers. And the magazine covers are brazen. It's not concealed. It's brazenly kind of using the youngish female form as the capital. That is That is the dominant thing. So, going back to the other ones, here is the Sunday Times Style magazine. That's the one. See, Dolly Anderton. And here is Elizabeth Moss. Now, all of them either naturally blonde or artificially blonde, but the blonde is the dominant thing, white blonde, and this is another blonde. Now, this blonde, of course, is the most exploitative and profitable kind of thing, is the image of Diana. So what message are they giving to the gullibles? For decades, the idea of a white blonde woman has been the central kind of weapon, tool, and commercial kind of commodity. That's the image. So when the Hackney, North and Stoke Newington MP, Diane Abbott, taunted or condemned or criticized the blue-eyed blondes, she was correctly criticized because of the context. She got the context wrong. She got the comment right, but the context wrong. And Saida Warsi reportedly advised one of her colleagues to use a white blonde young person as a front in order to get anywhere within the racist system. White blonde or blonde leverage, I think, is the phrase. If the leverage word wasn't there in the phrase, there was another word, advantage probably, but effectively it meant advantage. Now this blonde thing has been exclusively, overly exploited. And there is no reason for doing that except to continue to perpetuate the brainwashing of the gullibles and the rest of the people exposed to this blonde kind of assault, the subliminal targets. And I think that has to be one of the perpetual aspects of the sickness of the mainstream media embodied in the Fleet Street papers of whatever format. The Times, Sunday Times, or the Boris Graph. Well, the Boris Graph has had members of its staff, including one blonde bombshell, who actually confessed to being overly sexually driven and to have been engaged in any number of sexual encounters with people. That is journalism. So the gullibles are not just the gullibles that the Spectator calls the cognitively challenged ones, that the so-called left is kind of ignoring. But the gullibles also include the cognitively unchallenged and cognitively fit and functioning ones as well. In other words, most of British society is brainwashed, and the weapon that carries out the brainwashing, or the masseuse, to use a kind of word in the context, that is a blonde, white, young female. That's it. That is the weapon with which the gullibles are brainwashed. And the absolute majority of the population in Britain are categorizable or mentionable or citable or describable as the gullibles in this context, which means that issues like the reported exposure of Trump and his latest known wife to this virus is not being treated as a medical or health issue. It is being treated by the British media as essentially an issue to do with the scheduled election next month, in one day short of a month. 3rd of November is the scheduled date, which means that the exposure itself could have been arranged. Could have been. I have no evidence to say that it was arranged, but it could have been arranged as part of the benefit, the gains that he's being exposed to, that is apparently reportedly bringing him in terms of sympathy and in terms of whatever else. So the question that the Guardian has recently discovered needs examining. The question about Boris Johnson, the extent and the truth about Boris Johnson's exposure to the virus. This has happened on the Guardian's part on the last few days. In fact, probably on the same day the Guardian admitted this, that the reports started to circulate that Trump and his wife have been exposed to the virus. And the query about Boris Johnson's own exposure, reportedly exposure earlier, is this: was it as it was described in the reports? If it was, why has there been almost complete censorship, complete ban on the details of what happened during that period when Boris Johnson was apparently ill and apparently in hospital? And this actually relates back to Trump's reported exposure. Was it the calculation of Trump's advisors and strategists that as his stock electorally was going down, there had to be something drastic in order to change that sinking prospect? And the only thing that could be found was a sympathy factor that would be crossing the party political lines or ideological lines, and humanitarian concerns and commensuration and sympathy would be expressed for him by even people who don't agree with him or most certainly not support him. And that is on top of the guaranteed support that he has among his fans, who are, if Trump is irrational, then those people are beyond irrational. Because Trump has been for 4 years featuring every single day of the 4 years that he has been in post, in occupation of the White House. He has been featuring as involved in or with more than one lying and dishonesty and abuse, including the abuse of his own daughter. That is very much included in the list of Trump's unfitness in public office, unfitness as a so-called father, unfitness for most things. So his claim that he could walk out of the hospital right away shows that even he is admitting that he isn't ill at all, which means it could have been a staged encounter or exposure. Encounter with the virus, exposure to the virus. This is world exclusive diagnostic of the British media, part A, on Sunday, the 4th of October 2020, being brought exclusively on this KhoodeelaarTV channel by the Khoodeelaar campaign. And this presentation is created, researched, written, and conducted by myself, the organizer of the KhoodeelaarTV campaign, Muhammad Haque. And all the disclaimers in the past and all the descriptions apply. And I emphasize that this is original presentation. And it's original live. It's not formally scripted in literal form, but it is based on the research which is going on 24/7 all the time. And we shall be taking a look at some of the front pages, but the actual contents of this commentary analysis is based on the work, and it is entirely my own creation, my own script, my own evidential, analytical, intellectual, and moral script. And the Sunday Telegraph is promoting the autumn walk as a part of a kind of healthy kind of thing. And there are 20 autumn walks chosen by Britain's top nature writers. Now, that one, Britain's top, is a complete rubbish. Because most people who know their stuff don't get anywhere near writing or commenting or contributing to the Sunday Telegraph or the Sunday Daily Borisgraph or Sunday Borisgraph. For a start, it's a racist paper that it leaves out all the Asian people, all the African people, and as it is also an anti-Muslim, it keeps out all the Muslims. And there is this reactionary piece in the Borisgraph, which is obviously coming from Dominic Cummings. It says, broken civil service full of urban metropolitan thinkers. And it's written by somebody who is being called, quote, Lord Agnew, called the civil service the most over-centralized bureaucracy in the Western world. Well, that may be the kind of numerical, demographic kind of numbers counting, but I have said, for decades, I have said that the British civil service is uncivil and it is disserving the population. So, Lord Agnew, as they call him, is at least 40 years or 50 years behind me. And he would never acknowledge my thinking. Here it is decrying the metropolitan thinkers. But what about thinkers like myself? Who are not metropolitan, who are not kind of rural. We are not provincial. We are international, objective, international thinkers. And there is this Matt continuing on the news on Trump. It says, warning, some viewers should be ashamed of the reaction to the next report from the White House. And that is that is typical Trump in denial and feisty. So what the truth is, of course, will not be known as fully as it should be for quite a while now. But it is absolutely clear from Trump's own statements and the obliging media's repetition of his statement that he could walk out of the hospital anytime and he's already feeling better. Now, if that is the case within 24 hours of his being reportedly ill, and it follows that he's not ill at all. He's saying he's not ill at all. And 2 days ago, The Independent online in the UK ran a headline saying that Trump would leave this virus infection behind him and he will emerge stronger than he has been. So all these indications are that Trump is not really ill. Because if he were ill and not able to function, then the vice president, so-called, would have been already in charge, which he is not. Well, if he is in the secret, then that is not something that we can comment on because that is not demonstrable as evidence. What can be demonstrable as evidence is the widely reported assertion by Trump that he could leave the hospital anytime. That shows that this whole thing has been staged as the biggest ploy for Trump to stay in the White House. So that's the introductory thesis. And remember, this is the Boris graph we are looking at. And it has got a half-page propaganda piece by the racist reactionary called Douglas Murray. And another one written by somebody called Zion Lights, says nuclear power is a huge opportunity to protect the planet and boost our economy. And there is a company managing director called Mark Henriquez, whose piece is headlined, "The only way to save my business is by taking the government to court." We shall be talking more about the courts and the access to the courts. And there are people So this is a story about asylum seekers, but it's not headlined as asylum seeker. This is something headlined in a misleading way. about what is happening in Libya, and the truth behind the people seeking to cross the sea and reach European countries seeking refuges and asylum is in there, and that is the maximum that it is admitting. It is not talking about the role of the Western countries, Britain included, in creating that situation. Hell, they're saying that we have only two choices: die at sea trying to reach Cyprus, or die slowly here in Lebanon. Every Friday for the past month, the men of Tripoli have buried relatives who died at sea trying to reach Cyprus. This week it was Shadi Ramadan, whose body washed ashore in South Lebanon on Thursday night, nearly a month after the overloaded boat he was in set sail in hopes of escaping the country's crushing economic collapse. And it goes on. Now, contrast that with the promotion of the so-called Home Secretary, the Interior Minister, Priti Patel, who has been featuring all week in news about her plot to send asylum seekers to the sea or somewhere else. And she is being hailed by the right-wing Fleet Street, anti-immigrant, completely racist Fleet Street today, Sunday, the 4th of October 2020, as getting her popularity raised because of her tough stance, the cruelty she's showing increasingly, harsher kind of steps she's taking against the seekers of refuge and asylum in this country. All of this is happening within the week of the ending of the marking of the 75th year of the United Nations, whose agency, the Human Rights Council and Refugee Council, whatever it is sending the opposite message, saying that the state in which the refugees and the asylum seekers are in across the world is absolutely horrific, and the need urgent help and urgent access to various countries which are members of the United Nations to give them asylum and refuge. And this is not an invention of this year. This has been the duty of a UNO member state, which Britain is, to allow significantly larger numbers of refugees than even at a rate of every month. Then the UK has allowed even for 10 years. That is the truth. But the papers are not interested in telling the truth. The Boris Graf is not interested, nor is the Sunday People or the Sunday Mirror. And the reason is that, as I have said before, and as the records show, despite the pretension that the Labour Party is an anti-racist party, the anti-imperialist party, and all the rest of it, and the whole package that has been attached to the backside of Jeremy Corbyn, while he has been festering as the garden gnome politically. The Labour Party has not been opposing racism, And the conservative has been only treated to tokenistic critiques of its serial racist measures and steps and whatever else it has been taking. And the latest one, there has been no occupant in that post of Home Secretary or Domestic Minister or Interior Minister in the UK who has been as ignorant, as uncouth, and as corrupt, and as shameless, and as pro-racist, as denying the rights, human rights of the people of Africa and Asia, as the current one, Priti Patel. Now, to those who don't understand Indian languages, Priti literally translates to pretty in English. And the pretty is a Sanskrit-based Hindi word, which has got kind of replicated by other regional neighboring languages. So Priti Patel is pursuing, as the Guardian managed to put the word in its headline during the week. Despite the name, Priti has been doing disgusting things. Disgusting as defined in the dictionary. And that is opposite of the beauty or pretty. Now, that is not the only topic on which the mainstream so-called media is failing to tell the truth. That is also one of the top kind of listed items that the mainstream media, Fleet Street, actually goes back to when there is nothing else that it can drum up. It can use the racist hatred as the thing to drum up hatred against the imagined enemies of England with. Remember, I'm saying England, I'm not saying and Wales, because England and Wales, that is a completely ridiculous combination, because Wales is devoid of all the power, authority, whatever, to warrant being included as a so-called equal partner with England. And also there is this other thing of the Cornwall. The Cornish people have been completely kind of treated as being fourth or fifth or sixth or seventh, eighth or ninth or 11th grade slaves, enslaved to England. And that is something that has to be reversed, as the slavery of the Welsh to the English needs to be reversed. If by endorsing this particular member of that community in the papers today, if by doing that they're kind of presenting an image of them being respectful of smaller nations, then that is a completely dishonest attempt. They are not respectful of smaller nations. And what the people is saying is that it's quoting or reporting General's veteran's plea. General's veteran's plea in letter to Prince. A general is saying to Harry that he should come back to, England and help his soldier heroes, hero pals. And that is given a bigger exposure on the inside pages, 2-page spread. Now, in the Sunday Mirror on page, I'll come to the pages, yes. Pages 6 and 7, there is a double page kind of spread on Trump. And it says, the headline in the Sunday Mirror says, the next 48 hours will be critical. White House chief's warning. And Trump is asking, will I die? Now that is not what the Sunday Times is saying. The Sunday Times is saying, and the Boris Graf is saying, let's see which one is saying that exact word. Now the Boris Graf is saying, Trump is given oxygen as vital signs concerning. And the subheading is, doctors claim US president is doing very well, contradicted by White House officials. So this thing that I said, that it could have been that the whole illness and exposure thing was staged, it is being reinforced by these contradictory statements. And they're saying that he said, White House chief's warning, Trump is asking, will I die? That sounds like real if he has got a real exposure to the illness, because that is apparently what people who are actually infected have expressed, reportedly expressed as the feeling. And if the over-reported experiences of Derek Draper, the husband of the ITV breakfast time presenter, Kate Garraway, is taken as a reliable kind of indication of what the victims of the virus actually go through, then Trump, if the Sunday People is asking, saying that he is asking, will he die? He must be genuinely infected. As I said before, if, on the other hand, he is claimed that he can leave the hospital anytime, is true or is the truth, then of course the whole infection thing is a staged thing to gain the support of the electors. Hope this is clear now. Now here is the Sunday People, which has got 2 pages. And there is a timetable of the deadly diagnosis, byline to Christopher Bucklin. And they're saying that the president's COVID diagnosis came after a busy week on the campaign trail, throughout which he failed to wear a mask. So that's a whole list of things there that he should have done, but he failed to do. During that week preceding the diagnosis of the report of his catching the virus. So while we are kind of given this contradictory set of lines about whether Trump is actually feeling genuinely well, so well that he could leave the hospital anytime. Well, that is the line, one line. And the other line is that, of course, he's been asking whether he will die. So that is roughly the state of the reporting, the image on the Fleet Street and mainstream. That is what is happening in the rest of the media as well. And we'll leave aside the taunting and the kind of people who are celebrating the fact that Trump is ill. That is not something that we shall be attempting to even recognize, because that is not acceptable. If a genuine person is affected by an illness or something similar, then we sympathize with them as human beings, not based on what kind of position they take politically or in their actual decision making. Now, this thing about the Harry and the Meghan being asked by the general to come back to Britain is, it seems to me, a backdoor way to establish kind of rapport with the pair. And this backdoor thing is being done by not very crafty concealment of the source. Because this headline could be the royal family itself calling them to come back, not just the general, but the royal family itself calling them to come back for all kinds of problems that the royal family has been struggling to hide and cover up. And that is the two-page spread on the virus, state of the virus. Dementia therapies shut out of care homes. Patients stress hell in virus ban. Patients stress hell in virus ban. So that's the kind of investigative report about what is going on the hospital kind of network. So they're trying to patch things up with the pair. That is what I read in the kind of roundabout way in which they're going to admit that they need Harry and Meghan in rather than on the outside, because the damage that Harry and Meghan have already been causing to the opportunistic interests of the monarchy and its hangers-on is unthinkable if they were on the inside and not spilling the beans, as it were. And this Express headline is, of course, a kind of reluctant admission that Trump may be indeed seriously ill. Now, the Express is also celebrating that this is the one that on page 2 of the Sunday Express, they are running this Tory Conference 2020 supplement. And in that page spread, in the two page, well, the one page spread, let's say, at the bottom of page 2 of the Sunday Express, they are saying that Home Secretary to blast asylum system and promise biggest overhaul in decades. Now that is a lie. And the second thing is the pledge to be fair to those needing our help, but firm to stop abuse of generosity. Now that is a complete criminality and denial and lie, because nobody is exploiting, quote, our generosity. The whole asylum thing, as the Daily Borisgraph is saying, in its rare but truthful kind of dispatch about the asylum situation. They're saying we will hunt down the criminal gangs who traffic people into UK. Hunt down. I mean, that is ridiculous, because the British police, who will be needed to hunt down any group, are not tackling crime being committed every day. Most of the crimes, let's say, committed every day by Britain-born perpetrators. And there is no evidence, there is no sign that they are bothered about the homegrown indigenous millions, and there are millions of wrongdoers and lawbreakers and criminals and perpetrators. And most of them are left alone by the police. So how can the asylum seekers be, in their fantasy, reduced? And where is the actual evidence? And we shall move on. And the the Mail on Sunday, the Mail on Sunday is running the story on the front page. And this is the other, but this one doesn't look like a blonde, but it's a young white female dressed in the style of the pornographic model that they exploit these women as. So the Mail on Sunday is running a front page splash which is very rare in every respect or every disrespect, because it is saying that Boris's father, Stanley Johnson, broke Boris's mom's nose. And it is based on a piece in a so-called political book of the year. And the headline to that one is Prime Minister's mother reveals she ended up in hospital as she tells writer, I want the truth to be known. And the exclusive is based on the so-called book which we shall be seeing who wrote this one. Affairs, family feuds, dynamite gossip, major new biography by top investigative author. So it's not by Boris Johnson's mother, it is by a top investigative author. And it is on 2 pages. One is page 5, and one is page 15. So where is it? Is it from pages? Yes, let's see. If it is, then it will be quite something. So, okay, it's page 5 about Boris's parents. Now, it's a book by Boris Behind the Mask. Yes, it's by Tom Bauer. So it's Tom Bauer who is the author, top investigative reporter, they're saying. Okay, so it's page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9, page 10, page 11, so it's all about that book by Tom Bauer, about Boris Johnson's family. So what are they doing? Is that the most important thing? My answer is no, because they're not telling the truth about that family despite the 15 pages, 16 pages. Because if you add 15 pages to one page, that is 16 pages. And John Sopel, who is the BBC North America correspondent, editor, who has written a book apparently, a year at the circus. He's described here as currently still the BBC's North America editor. And Sopel's piece is part of the 2-page spread on pages 20 and 21. We shall be continuing in the next part